Hi friends, welcome back to Sew HoneyBee. In today's video, I have another tutorial from Sewfisticated Crafts Designs. It is for this little card holder. This has to be one of the cutest things I have made in a while. It is very tiny, but mighty. Now let me go over the details to this card holder. It has 2 card slots in the front, but each slot can hold more than 1 card. Now on the back there is a clear vinyl pocket right here. A United States vaccination card fits just right in this little pocket. It also has a zipper on the top, and now this little pocket here, it can hold a lot more than I thought. Also there's a wristlet strap, but if you don't want to use the wristlet strap, you can just clip it onto anything using this D-ring right here. Now, don't let the curves, the zipper on the top, or the clear vinyl stop you from making this little card holder. Even a beginner can make this. I know everyone is going to want one of these. So whether you're selling them or making them for friends, family, co-workers, teachers, I know you're going to want to sew these up. Now, those are all the details. Now, I want to go over how you can get yourself this little pattern. Now, Jessie from Sewfisticated Crafts Designs has made this pattern available for free for all Facebook group members. So if you are already a member, you can go over and get that link in the group. Now, if you're not a member yet, there's no better time than now to go over and join that group. I have a link in the description below. Now, if you are not on Facebook, I know you're going to still want this pattern. She has also made it available for purchase on her website. Now, she has graciously given me a coupon code for all of you, and I'm going to add that coupon code right here. Now, you can use the affiliate link, go over to the website, look at all the patterns, pick out which ones you want to purchase, use the coupon code at checkout, and both of us win. Okay, so those are the details and how you can get the patterns. Now in the weeks to come, I will be doing tutorials for all of her patterns. I think that is all the stuff. Please like, share, and subscribe to my channel. I promise you'll learn something new every time. Well, I promise you might learn something new every time. Okay, let's get started now. Now, I've already got all my pieces prepped and everything and ready to go. The only thing that I haven't prepped yet is my card slot, which is a fussy cut. Now, there are a lot of ways that you can fussy cut something, but I wanted to share with you the way I did it. This is a scrap of fabric, and what I'm wanting to fussy cut or feature is this rose right here. So I'm wanting to find the center of that rose. So I'm going to fold the fabric on itself just so that the rose disappears. Can you see that? I'm going to hold that fabric together, put it down on my mat, and find the center of that rose. Now I'm doing the same thing to find the center of this pattern piece. So now I'm going to lay my centers together. Here's the crease here, and here's a crease on my paper. There is a seam allowance on the top and a seam allowance on the bottom, so I want to make sure I get the whole top of that rose. Now I'm going to hold it on this side, and I am going to open up this pattern piece. So now I know that this pattern piece is right at the center of that rose. So now I'm ready to cut this whole thing out. Now the reason why I didn't cut at the pattern line at the bottom is because I want to make sure that this isn't going to shrink up as I press it or anything like that. So it's always easier to cut off what you don't need than it is to add on. So I did that a little bit longer. You see how that is really pretty and it's fussy cut, and that rose is right in the center. There is a seam allowance still at the top, so that is how I fussy cut that piece. Okay. The first thing I'm going to be doing is my wristlet strap. Now there is no pattern piece for this, but inside the pattern it will give you the dimensions on the width and the length that you will have to cut this. Now the measurement is determined by the size of the swivel clasp that you will be using. First thing I did was I went ahead and I folded this in half and I pressed it. Then I opened it out and I folded the edges into the center and then folded it on itself again. Now I want to add my swivel clasp to the strap to make sure that it is going to fit, and it does just right. I want to make sure that my swivel clasp is on there. Don't sew these ends until you have put your swivel clasp on there. Now I've done that before and it was so frustrating because then you have to unpick it, put your swivel clasp in, and then sew it again. So you can either pin this or you can clip it, whichever one. Now I want to make sure that my edges aren't uneven. If they are uneven, you're going to have issues with it later on. So just make sure your edges are right with each other. I'm not going to drop my needle right at the edge. I'm going to come in a little bit and drop my needle. Then I'm going to work my way back and then forward. So now I've sewn all the way across. Now I want to take my scissors and I want to reduce the bulk at the edges. So you can see there, I just reduced the bulk, but I did not clip either of my threads. So now I want to go ahead and fold this in on itself, matching that seam right on itself, and put a pin. Now I want to do that all the way around. You can either clip this or pin it, whichever one you want to use. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to top stitch this all the way around at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Then I'm going to jump over to this side and do the same thing all the way around. Now I want to make sure that both of these seams, I am sewing them going both the same direction so that this strap stays straight and doesn't become twisted. Okay, now I want to jump over to the other side, put my presser foot down, drop my needle, okay, now I want to snip all of my threads, including the one that we used to jump across. Okay, so now it's nicely stitched all the way around. So now I want my swivel clasp on the outside, but I want to move it to right where that seam is. So now this is where you have a choice. You can either add a rivet there, or you can just go ahead and use your sewing machine and sew across right here. Now you want to make sure you're not going to get too close to this swivel clasp, because if you do, you can break your needle or damage your machine. Wristlet strap is complete. Okay, now the next thing we are going to be working with is our D-ring. Now, because I did not interface this fabric, I cut my fabric piece 4 times the width of my D-ring. I folded it in half, folded the edges inside of themselves, and then folded it on itself again. So now I'm going to sew at 1/8 of an inch on both sides, going the same way just like we did the wristlet strap. Okay, so now that's all top stitched. I can get my D-ring. I can put it inside of there like that. I'm going to add a clip to it and put this aside too. Our D-ring is now complete. So now the next thing we are going to do is our zipper tab and our zipper. Now we do not need a zipper this long. Now the reason why I'm using this zipper is because I am a tailor and I have dress zippers in every single color. I have so many of them. So I figured, why not use this zipper, because it goes so well with this fabric. It's almost identical to the fabric. So now I want to cut off my zipper end right here. Now I'm going to get the lighter and I'm going to burn the ends so that that zipper does not fray and it stays really nicely like that. I'm not going to worry about the length right now. Now I'm going to get my zipper tab and I want to show you what I did with this. First of all, I pressed it in half. But instead of folding both sides in on itself, I only pressed one side in on itself and then pressed it again. The reason why I left this side open like this is because I'm going to put the right side, which is the pretty side, against my zipper right here. So now I'm going to sew across here at 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. Now I removed my clip, but I have not moved my hand away from anything here. So right now my hand is being used as the pins at this point. Okay, so you see how nicely that came out? So now I'm going to fold this back on itself, fold it, and see how nicely that is? Because I went ahead and I did all that pressing and prepping of this little piece, it just goes right where I want it to. Now, I want to make sure though, when I pull this down, I want to make sure my stitching back here is covered. Go ahead and put a pin right there so that you can see what I'm talking about. So you see how you cannot see the stitching on the back? Now on the front, what I'm going to do is I'm going to top stitch across the front at a 1/8 inch seam allowance. Now my machine was lagging because I'm right at the zipper teeth. So I can use my hand crank to pass that area and then just proceed. And then once it goes past there, then it just does fine. You just want to be gentle with your machine, especially these vintage machines. They are really, really sturdy and really tough. But there are times that you just got to help it along. Okay, so now I want to clip down the edges of my zipper. And so now you can see that it's all complete. Okay, as you can see, I've put a mark on both sides of the zipper tape. That is how long our zipper needs to be. So most of this here is going to be cut off. So what I want to do is I want to pull my zipper pull all the way to this side. So now let me show you what we need to do. I'm going to fold my zipper right at that mark. I'm going to pinch it and I'm going to bring up my zipper teeth to the edge. Okay, and I'm going to put a pin. Okay, can you see that? Let me do this side so you can see it again. I'm going to fold my zipper back on itself right at that mark. See the mark there? I'm going to pinch it and bring it back on itself. And then put a pin. Okay, so now when I close up my zipper, I want to make sure that both ends are right at the same spot. If they are not, pin it again, okay? And you can move them over and stuff like that. But these look just fine. So now, all this piece here, we no longer need it. But I'm not going to cut it all off. I'm just going to cut off a portion of it. My needle is down in the zipper. My presser foot is down on the zipper. Now it is okay for me to remove my pin. Do not put your fingers anywhere in the front, okay? Then just sew forward. Just take a couple of stitches forward, a couple of stitches back. You're just wanting to just barely tack it down. Okay, see how that looks? Now I'm going to do the same thing to this side. Put it in there, drop my needle, drop my presser foot, take out my pin. So now when I close my zipper, the zipper teeth end right at the same spot. My zipper tab looks really good on both sides. Okay, so now I'm happy with my zipper. So now this is done and I'm going to put it aside. Okay, so now I have all my pieces for the next steps. I have my label. Okay, it says, I know I can't believe I'm handmade either. This I got from moremino.com, and I will leave a link in the description if you are interested in getting some of these labels. I have my D-ring. I have my clear vinyl, my bias tape, and then I have my exterior B piece here. I want to start off with explaining the pieces for the bias tape. Now, if you are using vinyl for this piece, you're going to use a thinner one. But because I'm using cotton fabric, I had to use the thicker one. Again, just like the wristlet strap, iron it in half, iron it in on itself, and then turn it again. Okay, and you get a piece of bias strap. Now, take your clear vinyl and fit that right inside of there. It's kind of hard to see because the vinyl is clear, but you can see there now. Okay, it's really real snug in there. Okay, so there it goes. And you can even put this down and make sure that it's really on there really good. Okay, so now I'm going to top stitch across here at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Then I'm going to top stitch at 1/8 across the top also. Okay, now I want to make sure that my bias tape is caught on both edges. Okay, so now I want to drop my needle, not at the very edge, but just a little bit in. Drop my presser foot, and so going across. Okay, so you can see they came out really good. Now I'm going to stitch again across the top, going in the same direction. Okay, so this is all ready. It's all done. So now I'm going to put that aside with my D-ring and my label. Now on the pattern piece, there are two markings here. You want to transfer that over to your pattern piece. Okay, so now I've marked on this piece here where my binding should go. So I line up that binding right on that mark. Now you may have difficulty sewing over this clear vinyl even though you have a Teflon foot, because I tried to do it right now and I just had difficulty. So I'm going to show you what you can do. This is just a piece of tissue paper. I'm going to put the tissue paper down, put my piece on top of that tissue paper. Now I'm going to top stitch the vinyl all the way around this piece. You can see that I was able to top stitch that really easily all the way down. Now I can just take this tissue paper, and because of that stitching line, the tissue paper has become perforated. And now I can just rip it away and throw it in the trash. Okay, and so now you can see how nicely that came out. So now my piece is all ready for the sides. I've got to put my label on this side and my D-ring on this side. And I want to clip this at about 1/4 of an inch below my binding. Right about there. And just put a clip. I want to put my D-ring, same thing, about 1/4 of an inch below my binding. Now I want to really pay attention to the details here, because I want to base this across here, but my stitching is going to be at 1/4 of an inch. When my final stitching is done, I want to make sure that my D-ring is going to be out of the way and it is not going to get in the way of my needle. I don't want to break a needle and I do not want to damage my machine. So now I want to put that on there just like that. Okay, so you can see that is on there like that, and my label is on there also. So now I'm going to baste my label and the D-ring on both sides. So now I'm going to do the same thing on this side. Okay, so now I'm going to hold down my D-ring with my finger, remove my clip, make sure it's right where I want it, drop my needle, not at the edge, I'm dropping it almost in the middle of the D-ring tab. Go forward, go back, forward. Now I'm sewing over this quite a few times. Now I'm not really worried about the clear vinyl, because the reason why I'm not worried about the clear vinyl being perforated is because there are two pieces of fabric here. There's cotton fabric on this side and my D-ring fabric on this side. So the vinyl is in between the two. Okay, so I'm not worried about that. This piece is all done. So now let's move it aside. Now the next piece we will be working on is our fussy cut. This is a woven interfacing. It's almost like a piece of cotton itself. There is this rough side that has glue on it, and on the other side it's just a piece of cotton. So I want the glue side up, my pretty side up, so that the two sides are going to be touching each other. They will be glued. Okay, now when I put my iron over that glue, the heat from the iron is going to melt that glue immediately. Here's my fussy cut. Here's my one side. Oh, here's the other one. I was like, where did it go? It was just here. And then here are my card slots. Now you can see that I have put markings on my card slots on both sides. Those are my fold lines. Now you will be able to find those on the pattern piece. So now I know that this edge is the bottom of my card slots. This edge here is the top of my card slot, because I don't want my rose going upside down. I want it in full bloom. So now I want to put right sides together. Because my lines or my markings are on this side is my right side. This pretty side is also my right side. So I want to make sure I've got the bottom, make sure I've got the top. So I want this piece here to go upside down. Now I'm going to pin it. Okay, so now I want to sew along this edge at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So I'm going to drop my needle, drop my presser foot, sew forward, go back. Okay, now let me move the mat back over. Now I want to finger press this here. And I want to fold it back on itself. And make sure that my edges here are lining up right with each other. Now I want to get a clip and clip my ends. Flip it around. Do the same thing on this side. So that is the first fold of the card slots. That is wrong sides together. Okay, now I'm going to flip this over. Now I'm going to grab my iron that is still just a little bit warm. I'm going to press it, just lightly press it. Okay, so now my next fold, you can see where my markings are. I want it folded right at that point and making sure that the edges are still right with each other. I can now take my iron again, it's still warm. Just barely put it like that. Okay, so now my next marking is right here. So you see my next mark is here and here. So now I want to fold that going back on itself. So now this is the top part of that second card slot. So now I folded it back, removed my clip, and now the clip is going through all of them, so it's holding it. So now I want to do the same thing here. You see the marking right there? I want to make sure that I'm going to fold it right at that mark and clip it. That is my second card slot. My iron is still warm, so that is still working okay. Okay, so there's my two card slots. Now I've got to find the third marking. So the third marking is right there. You see it? So now I want to fold it going this way and move my clip over. Same thing on this side. There's my marking. I want to move my clip over. That's one really good thing about having these tiny irons. They can really almost go anywhere, and they're so easy, just like a regular iron. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the measurement from the pattern, and I'm going to cut off from the top and the bottom, because I want this from I want the distance from this flap here to my top edge to be about 1 inch. And you can see how I have the top markings there, because I cut the card slots a little longer, because it's easier to trim it away than it is to add it. You'd have to do it over again. Okay, so let me go ahead and cut that. I've cut off a little bit off the top and a little bit off the bottom. Okay, so I'm really happy with the way that came out. Okay, so now what I want to do is I want to top stitch both of these card slots here. So I just want to take the first one, move everything out of the way. Now top stitch across here at a 1/8 inch seam allowance. Okay, just like that. Okay, so now I'm going to fold this back on itself, back to where it's supposed to be, so that I can find out where my second card slot is. And that is this one right here. So I'm going to grab that, move everything out of the way, and then top stitch. Okay, so now I'm going to grab my edges and put them right at the edge here and clip it, turn it over, do the same thing, put it down, turn it over, and do the same thing. Okay, now I'm going to sew down each of these ends at a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Okay, just like that. And now I'm going to do the same thing to this side. So now I want to remove the bulk from these 4 corners. So I'm going to get my scissors and I'm going to trim off the corners. So now, this is right side up. I'm going to pull it back so that we can see. Oh my goodness, I am really liking this pocket. I think I'm liking this one out of the most, especially with spring right around the corner. This is coming out so cute. Okay, now I'm going to top stitch along both of these edges at a 1/8 inch seam allowance. Those are both of our panels now. We have our lining, our zipper, our wristlet, everything's almost all done. So now I have found the center point of my panel, the fussy cut panel in the center. I put these 2 seams together and found my center at the top and at the bottom. Now I want to do the same thing over here. Might be easier to fold it going this way. Okay. That is my center right there. And at the bottom, that's my center there. Okay. So now, I want to get my centers and I want to put them together. Actually, I want to put the paper in front because I am going to cut this piece down so that it is the right size. And so now, as I cut both of these out, they are both going to be the right size. Actually, I'm going to put a pin over here because I do not want anything to move. Now I can pin this panel, but I will not be able to pin this one because this has got the vinyl. So you don't want to put little holes in your vinyl. So now I want to go ahead and trim this all away. Throw that in the trash. Don't forget to trim off the tops if they're needed, if you need to. Okay. Okay, so now that piece is completely done. That is so cute. Okay, I'm going to put that aside. Now I'm going to do the same thing to this one here. Now remember, we already trimmed up our sides because on this one, because remember we needed to find out where to put our label and our D-ring. So now I can clip it here at this side and at this side. So now all I'm going to do is cut away at the bottom. And by doing this, when I go to sew this little pocket together, everything's going to be nice and rounded because it is going to be the same size. Okay, so you can see how nicely that came out. Okay, now I want to do the same thing to my lining pieces as well. Now I also fussy cut the lining, as you can see here. Okay, I wanted to make sure that was all lined up with each other because it's like, I guess it's like picnic table fabric. Okay, so now all my pieces are the right size. I have my 2 lining pieces. I have one of my pocket panels, the second pocket panel, my zipper, and my wristlet strap. We are almost done. Okay, now it's time to add our zipper to our panels. Okay, so now I want to grab my 2 panels. Let's move all this out of the way. We'll move that over there. Use something other than a pencil so that it will show up, so that both of us can see it. Okay, right there. And I want to do the same thing on this side. Okay, so now I want to get my panel and I want to put it right side up. I want to get my zipper and I want to put it right side down. Remember, this side with the pull is the right side. So this is our wrong side. So now I want to take that measurement right there, that marking, and I want to line up the end of, actually I'm going to use a clip. I want to clip it so that the end of my tab is at that marking right there. See that? Now I want to open up my zipper towards the middle. Clip it. Okay, now I want to show you something. You see how my zipper tape is just the tiniest bit too long? It's like almost just the teeth are too long there. So now what I can do is I can just ease this back just the tiniest bit so that I can put some of that difference on the other side. So now I'm a little over on this side and now I'm a little bit over on this side. So that works out really well. Okay? Don't worry if you're a little bit off. Okay? So again, my pieces are right side together. So now I'm going to baste my zipper onto my panel using a 1/8 inch seam allowance. Now, let me show you something also. I don't have to go all the way back here because there's nothing that I'm attaching here. I just want to start at my zipper tab and then go on. Now when I get to my zipper pull, you can see that I made sure that my needle was down. I picked up my presser foot, moved my zipper pull to the back, and now I've put down my presser foot, and now I'm going to sew forward again. Okay, so everything looks good. Okay, so now I'm going to grab my lining piece and I'm going to do the same thing. Let me move my zipper to the middle. I have my panel right side up, my zipper right side down. I want to put my lining right side down also. Now we have two layers that are going all the way to the end. So now I do want to start all the way at the end, go back, and then go forward. Okay? And also, now I want to sew it at 1/4 of an inch. Because the first time we were just basting on our zipper. Now we're sewing the zipper. Okay, so now I'm getting to my zipper pull. So I put my needle down into the fabric, pick up my presser foot, find where my zipper pull is, and then move it out of the way. I put down my presser foot, and now I'm going to continue. Now I want to show you something. Right here is where I was moving my zipper pull out of the way. And you see how I went off a little bit? I want to look on this side to see if that is going to make a difference, if it will be noticeable. First of all, I want to make sure that my zipper can open and close. Okay, which it can. I want to move all my pieces going away from my zipper and finger press it. Now is it noticeable? No, not really. Okay, so I'm happy with that. Now the next step that she has in the pattern is she wants you to top stitch across here, but I'm not going to do that just yet. I'm going to add this piece on first. So now I'm going to pin here or clip and clip over here. Okay, so now I want to move this over to the middle again. This is my right side of this panel. This is the right side of this panel. I want to put right sides together. I want to make sure that these edges meet right here, because remember, we cut all of these pieces at the same size. So now I'm going to take this, pin it across the top, now I'm not going to worry about it right here that it's not lining up, because that's where my zipper pull is. So that's why that is being distorted right there. Okay, so I'm going to put a pin or a clip right there. Okay, so now I'm going to baste across here at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. But I think I'm going to sew it from this side so that I can see where that zipper pull is. Okay, put my needle in the fabric, move my zipper pull out of the way. Then I'm going to continue on, making sure that all of my pieces are lined up. Okay, so now I've basted that across the top. This here is my right side. So here's the right side to my lining. I want to put right sides together. Same thing. Lining up my edges here. Clipping all the way across the top. Now I'm going to sew at 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. Now I want to find out where my zipper pull is. It's over here. Okay, I want to show you what just happened. I was sewing at 1/4 of an inch, but right here my zipper teeth caused my presser foot to go off. So now I am up at the 1/8 of an inch. That's why I pulled the piece out. Now I'm going to go back here again and I'm going to start stitching, making sure that I'm using that 1/4 of an inch seam allowance all the way down. I want that zipper to look as nice as possible. Now if you get to a point where you cannot get your zipper pull to move out of the way, stop, pull it out, and then go ahead, put it back in and continue to sew it. It's better for you to go through that little bit there than to get your zipper all messed up. My zipper pull is way back here now. I think that is the longest it has ever taken me to put in a zipper. Ay, ay, ay. Okay. Now I want to open it up. We are almost done. Oh my goodness, this is looking so cute. I'm really happy with the way this is turning out. I'm kind of finger pressing this. Now what I want to do is I want to drop my needle right here at a 1/8 inch seam allowance. Go all the way across, going through all thicknesses. Just 1/8 of an inch before you get to the end of the zipper. Cross over and then continue at a 1/8 of an inch all the way up to the top to where you get to the same point on this side and back stitch. I will show you the reason why here in a minute. Okay, now I'm 1/8 of an inch before I get to the end of that tab. I make sure I'm going to go across the tab, just 1/8 of an inch on the other side of that zipper. I think the next one of these that I do, because I am going to be making quite a few of these. I know there will be a lot of people who want them, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a number 5 zipper. It is a lot easier, especially since a dress zipper has to where it just can't easily go back unless you have a pull going a certain way. Okay. Woohoo! That is done. I did go off a little bit right there. I'm not going to really worry about that. I'm sure that the person that I give this to is going to love it. Okay, so now, because I did not sew all the way to this edge here, and I stopped here, or started and stopped at the end here, and did not go to the edge, when we put these two pieces together, it is going to go together so much easier. Now, I want to start at the side with the zipper tab. So you see my tab right there? I want to make the tab, squeeze it, and make it go towards the lining. Okay, so now I'm going to fold the lining back on itself, and the zipper tab and the two pieces of lining are going to be on this end. Now right here at this seam here and that seam there, I want to put those right with each other and put a pin in it. Okay? Now all the way around the edge, the remaining edge, I want to put a clip. Okay, so now right here again, I want to make sure that those two seams meet up with each other, right with each other. You see that? Right there. Now don't put the pin too far down because you don't want that pin to go into your clear vinyl. You just want it to be at the top. Clip it all the way around. I'm actually going to clip off my zipper, which I forgot to do. Okay. Now, over here with the lining, I want to clip that too. Now what I'm going to do, you can notice that I put 2 marks here. Okay, I want to leave this portion here open. So I'm going to start here, work my way all the way around, and then come all the way to here and then back stitch again. Okay, the reason why we're leaving this open is so that we can turn out our little pocket. Okay, now for the lining area, that is from my seam down, I want to sew my seam allowance at 3/8 of an inch. Up here at my pocket, I want to sew my seam allowance at 1/4 of an inch. So I'm going to start here, back stitch 3/8 of an inch, but just before I get to that seam right there, I'm going to jig jog out to 1/4 of an inch. Go all the way across. Right after I pass this seam here, I'm going to jig jog in 3/8 of an inch and then finish it off. Now if you're a little apprehensive about this corner, don't worry. You can go ahead and you can crank your wheel all the way. Try to avoid picking up your presser foot and moving, because if you move it too much, you will not have a smooth curve, but you'll have a jagged curve, okay? Just continue to move your wheel. Okay, and then when you get to a point to where you feel that you can continue, just continue. Okay. Sewing curves come with practice. Now my zipper pull is right here, so I'm really happy that it's not in my way. So now I'm going to continue across. But I am coming to my zipper tab, so I want to make sure that nothing moves on me. And I'm going to work my way out to 1/4 of an inch going past that tab. Again, if you need a crank through this corner, go ahead. It's better to go slow and get it done right the first time. After all the hard work you have done in making your first little pocket, it's better for you to just kind of go slow. Now I want to make sure, where's my D-ring? My D-ring is still going forward. If it's not, you can go in there and move it forward, okay? But you want to make sure that it's in the right spot. Okay, now I'm getting close to my pen, so I'm going to take it out. Now I've passed that area, so now I'm going to increase my seam allowance to 3/8 again. Okay, so now I want to take a look at everything, make sure that I'm happy with it. Right here, you can see that I went in my 3/8, jig-jogged out to 1/4 of an inch, and I feel okay. I'm happy with that. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a second seam line across here, just right outside of this one, almost like a little shadow of it. The reason why is because I want this seam here to be very stable. So now I'm going to go ahead, drop my needle, drop my presser foot, and just sew going across. Now right here at the D-ring, I really want to reinforce my D-ring. So I'm going to move out a little bit more and then move back in. Okay. Okay, so now I have really reinforced my D-ring right here with the 2 stitches here and then an additional set of stitches up here. Okay. Now everything looks good. I'm very happy with it. Okay. Now I want to trim this seam down. I do not want to trim my D-ring. So okay. Now I want to trim my lining. I'm actually using my paper scissors. These scissors are driving me crazy. Okay. Because my regular scissors are heavy duty tailor's scissors. And they are extremely sharp. So cutting cotton, just 2 layers of cotton and stuff, these are too much for it. So what I need to do is I need to buy another pair of scissors. Okay. Now, but to trim down this little D-ring, that's what I'm going to do. I am going to use the heavy duty scissors for that. Okay, because that's multiple layers. Okay, so now I still have a D-ring tab right there. I didn't cut it all the way down. And my D-ring is really reinforced there. So now, it's time to turn out our little bag, our little pocket. Now, I should have known this. Dress zippers have a certain way that you have to put your zipper pull so that it'll open. So please be aware of that if you are going to use a dress zipper. Okay, so now I'm going to turn all this in on itself. Now I want to turn this out using my fingers first. And kind of like the warmth of my hands before I get my turning tool. Oh, I'm so happy with the way this turned out. Okay. Now I've got my turning tool. And the first thing I want to do is push out that zipper tab right there, okay? And once my lining goes back in, it will be just right. So you see how that came out? Now over here, I'm really happy with the way that end came out also. Now I'm just taking this inside there and just gliding it across. I'm not poking anything because even though this is not sharp, it still can cause damage. Okay, so I just want to just be gentle with it. If I can poke it out with my finger, I'd rather do that than to get to this point and put a hole in it. Oh my goodness, that would be so awful. Okay. Okay, now I really like the way everything came out. My zipper works perfectly. Although I think that this label may be too big, but I still like it. Here's my pocket for my vaccination card. I have 2 card slot pockets. And then the inside lining. Okay, so now I'm happy with the whole thing. Now I'm going to take out my lining. Now it has folded itself right on itself automatically. So now I'm going to stitch my opening closed using a 1/8 inch seam allowance. Okay, so that's all closed up there. I was able to catch it on both sides. So now I can push that back in there. And because I sewed the lining at 3/8 of an inch, my lining, there's no problem with the baggy lining. Okay, so let me add my wristlet strap. Oh my goodness, this looks so adorable. I really like this. I'm going to take a quick iron to it. I really enjoyed making this little pattern. I hope you will make one too. Okay, until next time, bye.